I want to bring up the Vice President of Parkinson's Las Vegas. Pat is out there. There he is, my good friend. Pat, you are
Yeah.
an awesome guy, and you have the distinguished honor of welcoming in our keynote speaker today, a good friend of both of us. Go for it, buddy.
All right. Thank you. I am just really excited about this. Last year, 2020, when we had our movement fair at Zappos, it was well attended. Many of you are probably there. I left that event after having Jimmy Choi at our event. I said, how do we top this? Well, how do I do that? Well, we get the guy that beats Jimmy in cooking pizza to come and speak to us. Bill Bucklew. I first met Bill in Chicago in 2015, August 30th, 2015 to be exact. He was attempting to ride 100 miles in under 5 hours on his bike. Little did I know that at the time I was meeting an ultra adventure seeker who happened to be an advocate for living well with Parkinson's. In 2012, Bill was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He was 43 years old. And I want to welcome Bill at this time as someone who inspires thousands on every turn. Every turn we go. When I first contacted Bill, he was in a phone booth somewhere. I don't know, Bill, were you in Japan or something? Just having.
I think I was at Stanford, actually.
Stanford,
Yeah,
he
in
was
Palo Alto.
doing something.
Yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, this is Bill Bucklew. I'm going to turn it over to Bill, and Bill, take it away. Thank you for being
Awesome,
here.
Pat. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everybody. Really simply, I'm just going to share my story with everyone today, and my hope is that it's informative and in pockets entertaining. I'm going to share my desktop here. I put together a few visuals to hopefully make it a little bit more interesting, and off we will go. All right, so just kind of taking a step back, and Pat did explain my diagnosis in 2012, but I want to share a little bit about the path towards that, because it's a path that a lot of people find themselves on, and it was a challenging one for me. That's my son, Evan. And in 2005, in the spring, a club that I started at my work called the Running of the Gerbils, and we would run outside during the summer and inside on treadmills. And this warm spring morning, I'm running outside and I have a tightness in my right leg. And I didn't really think anything of it. It's first run outside, kind of expected that you're going to struggle a little bit. I'd stretch out, run a little bit more, it would tighten up again. I'd stretch out, run a little bit more, it would tighten up again. And it never relented. Every time I went running, it was progressively getting worse. So I ended up going in and seeing an orthopedist, started seeing sports medicine specialists, kinesiologists, all sorts of individuals. Nothing worked to relieve this problem, and it was getting progressively worse and worse. I went through that for 7 years, and boom, Parkinson's disease. And, in hindsight, it's interesting because I didn't have the classic tremor. I had this rigidity and some dystonia in my foot, but, all the Googling and everything else never uncovered it. I really didn't even know what Parkinson's disease was. I knew it was a disease that affected older people, vaguely knew that Michael J. Fox had it. That was about it. So it was like a punch in the stomach for myself and my family. And then, like everybody else, obviously I dove in and started trying to understand it more. And it was shocking. Unfortunately, Parkinson's disease is a growth industry. It's doubling almost every 20 years. And the number of people that have it is just shocking. And it was shocking to me that I didn't even know about it that much, considering how many people had it, which tells me that it's kind of under the radar. But my research also uncovered something really that I thought was a beacon of hope. As mentioned by the doctors earlier, there's really no disease-modifying pharmacology available, but exercise was emerging as a potential way to slow the progression, even the onset of Parkinson's in some individuals. So I latched onto that and, got pretty excited. But the other question was, what should I do? I'm 43 years old. I have a very young family. I have a great career that I'm really kind of just in the middle of getting started on. And here I have this disease. Do I tell people? Do I not? Do I join support groups? Do I get involved in the community? All difficult decisions for me. But after a couple weeks of contemplation, it was really clear in my mind that I'm coming out, and I did. And I told everyone at a neighbor's party. My poor neighbor, the conversation was like, hey, Bill, how's it going? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, not that great. I have Parkinson's disease. What's Parkinson's disease? But it was very freeing for me, because then I didn't have to look over my shoulder, worry that someone was noticing a tick in my hand or something, and I could get involved in the community. And it allowed me to really have a sense of purpose. This photo here, I love it. This was actually Red Rock Canyon in Las Vegas. So just right around the corner. It was a nice little Uber ride from the Strip for me. So I dove right in and I joined the PPMI study, which is a biomarker study for determining, what really would have helped me get diagnosed at a younger age when I first had the symptoms. It's looking for biomarkers in individuals with Parkinson's disease that they can run a test on to help determine that, and also look at kind of other modality effects of biomarkers, whether in pharmacology development or whatever. And I'm a big baby when it comes to needles. You can ask my wife or anybody. This is a pretty invasive study. It's spinal taps and DAT scans and extensive blood draws. And you can see me here in 2013, and I'm still in it today. And it just gives me a great sense of contribution to what hopefully will help other people that have problems like myself. But then I really dove into exercise, and the community continued to expand and rally around me in this pursuit. Here I put together a 7-person triathlon team that I grew to 60 people. And, swimming in Lake Michigan in 58-degree water, it's not easy to get anybody to do that. And we had kids swimming and competing together, and all to raise money for research and awareness, which was just phenomenal. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro for Team Fox. Really tough expedition up the Western Breach, just incredible. Pat mentioned Jimmy Choi. Jimmy and I ran the Dopey Challenge in Disney, which is a 5K, 10K, half marathon back to back. And, running with Jimmy's great, because this is the only race I think I've ever run that A, I finished with a 2-pound turkey leg in my hand, and B, I think I took on more calories than I actually burned during the race, which is pretty hard to do, but fun nonetheless. I kind of taught myself how to Nordic ski and did the longest ski marathon in America, the American Birkebeiner. It's over 30 miles. The guy on the left is doing a blessing of me with the American flag, because I'm the last one to start of a race of about 14,000 people. I really was struggling in the beginning, but I learned along the way and actually finished the race, which was amazing. I did 9 triathlons, including a full Ironman. And a lot of people cautioned me against doing the Ironman, especially because I was working full time and traveling a lot, that I couldn't train and that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I did it, and I felt great. And, all these like incremental steps into things that scared me or were things that I wasn't sure I was going to finish continue to really help me feel confident in the things that I go after today. And I want to point out that, I take these things seriously, but I have fun too. And you have to, because you never know what it's going to be like. Anybody with Parkinson's knows you can wake up and have a great day. You can wake up and just barely be able to get out of bed. So this case is the 2017 New York Marathon. I bet Team Fox that I could be at Michael J. Fox's house by 2:30 in the afternoon. And they did the quick math and realized that I had to run a 6-minute something mile pace based on when I was starting for the entire 23 miles to his house to make it. So they felt really comfortable that they weren't going to have to buy me a Brooklyn pizza and serve it to me on the course. But you can see who got the best of that equation. they really didn't discount the fact that I was able to talk to the director of the corrals and explain the situation. And he let me start right after the Kenyans up in the front, shaving several hours off my start time. And I just made it under the wire to get this pizza, albeit I was a little tired to really enjoy it. The small victory there was really satisfying. And, you know, I don't take things that seriously either. Here I'm with 2016. I'm wearing my Cubs hat because the Cubs had just won the World Series. And I'm at Michael J. Fox's house with Michael there. Everyone's laughing because I'm just a sweaty mess. You know, I'm over there like hugging Michael. And then I ask him if I can use his bathroom. And I'm totally kidding, but I did it in a serious way. And he, to his credit, you know, I'm like, Michael, I really need to use your bathroom. He's like, yeah, sure, come on in. And I'm like, yeah, Michael, I'm just kidding. So, you know, I try and have fun at these things, and that keeps my mind off of the pain of a lot of what you go through in these things. This is somebody that probably none of you recognize, but this is my father. And in 2014, 2 years after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, he was also diagnosed with Parkinson's. In fact, I noticed his symptoms like about a year after I was diagnosed. And, you know, the interesting thing is my grandfather, paternal grandfather, my father's father, had severe tremors later in his life in his early 80s. And we think he has had Parkinson's, but we don't know for sure. And he never saw a doctor to validate any of that. But needless to say, it's an extremely personal cause of mine. And knowing that all the genetic understanding is still evolving, you know, it's a big concern that I have for my family and future generations. So, you know, I started to have more difficulty running as the disease progressed a little bit. I started looking for ways to continue to exercise in ways that hopefully really reach people, raise some research dollars, and challenge myself as well. And as I was doing that, I learned about Frank Giannino. And in 1980, Frank set a world record for running across the US of 46 days. And that record was still standing in 2016 when I was reviewing it. And I don't sleep that much. It's one of the side effects of Parkinson's and everything that I go through. So I calculated if I walked 18 hours a day, I could potentially beat the world record for running across the US. A very lofty goal, granted, and it would be a very tough thing to do, but I decided I was going to see if I could do that. And it was just like that. It wasn't like tons of thinking. It was like, you know what? This sounds really challenging. It's a way to highlight the importance of exercise. I'm going to do it. And, you know, I'm a big fan of T.S. Eliot's quote, only those who are willing to go too far can find out how far we can go. This fit that mold pretty well. So it was great. I got connected to an Olympic strength and conditioning coach who got me into the biodynamics lab at Armstrong State University, and they digitized my body to help me work on different efficiencies. Because you can imagine walking across the US, any little efficiency gain you can make is going to make a huge difference over time. And I was really, really excited about this, but it turns out the data was really concerning, and they staged an intervention. So here is the Olympic strength and conditioning coach, the biodynamics professor, and the head of physical therapy staged an intervention and said, you know, Bill, your body is not going to allow you to do this. You know, your trunk rotation is half of that of a normal person's. My right foot isn't uplifting only about a third of as much as a normal person's. In fact, it was hitting the chirping on the treadmill. It's a complicated situation. You have the world's finest experts telling you that you can't do something. How would you guys respond to that? What would your response be? It was very difficult. I didn't even tell anybody about this for weeks afterwards. And I thought long and hard about it. And I thought about what would happen if I had a massive back problem or a leg problem. I could just stop. And yeah, that would be a failure, but you know, it would still be a positive experience, and I could still potentially make a difference. And who knows what's going to happen. So I was okay to go ahead with the notion that I was going to do it in a safe manner. And if I failed, I failed. So That philosophy allowed me to start this adventure. So I decided that in 2017, the day after Thanksgiving, November 24th, that I was going to get up and walk from Tybee Island, Georgia to San Diego and see if I could break Frank Giannino's record. And the intent was to find someone organically each day who had a connection to Parkinson's disease. And I was really concerned whether or not I was going to be able to find someone each day. So being okay to fail really allowed me to pursue this passion project and go for it. But that doesn't get you down the path. What gets you down the path and keeps you on the path is persistence and problem solving. Problem solving allows me to stay on the path, and persistence is what gets me and drives me down that path. And I had a lot of problems. So here I am in the Dallas Sports Medicine Clinic. I pretty much have a map of all the sports medicine clinics in the South. If anybody needs it, see me afterwards. They're working on my back as predicted by the experts. I did have some back problems, but I was able to work through them. And, at each turn when I had a significant issue, there was a solution. Some didn't really have a solution like this. The one day I was unsupported on the trip, I had an RV with friends and individuals kind of leapfrogging me. But this day I was all on my own. A massive dust storm kicked up near Roswell, New Mexico. I'll give you a flavor for that here. This was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it. I called to get a taxi at one point, and no one could hear me on the phone. The wind was so strong. You get the idea. And I couldn't raise anybody on the phone. I wasn't quite sure. At one point, a mailbox flew over my head when I was sitting in the ditch, but I just kept going, and it turned out being fine. And I picked the sand out of my eyes the next day and kept moving forward. There was a massive snowstorm in Mississippi. Everything was shut down. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I'm standing in the middle of a massive highway that's heavily trafficked, and there's nobody on the road. The ice was covering the ground, so it was dangerous to walk, but I just kept going. I had massive foot problems. You can see how swollen my foot is on the left side of the screen here. I had major blisters, which I'm not going to share with anybody, but just know that it was really rough. But I always came up with some solution, and yes, duct tape is the answer to a lot of solutions. So here, my small pinky toe was getting ground into the side of the shoe from walking on an angle all at the same time after time after time. Cut up the insole of a shoe, taped it on the side, shimmed my foot off, and that solved that problem. I actually had 4 sets of laces on my shoes so I could modulate the pressure in different points. I had a stress fracture at one point, so I had to kind of change the way my shoe interacted with my feet. And this allowed me to dial it in. And then I had what in mounting circles we call shin bang, the tongue of the shoe just repetitively hitting my foot. I took an insole, took a pad, taped it on the front of my lower leg and protected it that way. Again, constantly solving problems and not letting problems dictate what I can do. The closed bridge over the Mississippi River. I walked all the way to the Mississippi River step by step, get there. And we knew this was going to be a problem because there's no pedestrian bridge open. We had been talking to the administrators for some time. They wouldn't let me do it. The security guard called out my name when I walked up there and said, "Hey, Bill, you can't walk across here, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I called the police to see if they'd escort me across the main bridge. They wouldn't. We drove over, started walking. I felt terrible. The next morning I got up. How can I walk across America and not walk across the Mississippi? So we went back. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're wasting your time. We've been trying for a month." I got a meeting with the commissioner. He happened to be in his office. I talked to him face to face, and he was like, "Bill, I'm so inspired by your story that I'm going to put together a team of people and we're going to escort you across the footbridge." And that's what they did with these guys here. Again, persistence is the key. This is, I believe this is Interstate 20 in New Mexico. And, there were some sections where I had to walk on the interstate, and I'd walk against the fence, as close to the fence and away from the road as possible. On this particular day, I got kicked off by a state trooper that had encountered someone. Actually, he warned 3 years beforehand, and it actually was hit and killed. So I totally understand his perspective. I complied, and I was pretty down about it because it added 20 plus miles to the trip. But, and it was a real low moment in that time. But what ended up happening was we ended up going through the San Carlos Reservation, and it was by far the most amazing experience of the trip. I'll give you a flavor for it right here. This is just one sequence of it. I mean, for somebody from Chicago to see wild horses running right in front of you and next to you, and there were actually 4, you can see in the background, 4 other horses that had just run by me, was just unbelievable. And there was coyotes at night, and we didn't run into another person for a day and a half, and it was just amazing. So within these difficult situations, positivity and amazing things can happen. This is actually a really funny story. I've told this a couple of times, so for anybody who's heard me that's on here, I apologize. But this is the 3rd day in, and I'm walking late at night, about 11:30 at night, and I see this glowing object coming towards me. And I'm like, what is this? And this was Troy Willis, who is a Team Fox member, fellow Team Fox member, who had, I believe his grandfather had Parkinson's. And he brought me this jacket, and this is considered the safest jacket in the world. And you can see how much it glows here. It's just incredible. Here I am in front of a holiday display, stealing the show with this jacket. I was super excited, and took that from him a little reluctantly because I felt bad, but he was excited to give it to me. An hour and a half later, at like, I don't know, it was 1:30 in the morning, I get pulled over by a sheriff deputy, and I look at him, and he's shaking like this. His hand is shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, he must have Parkinson's. Maybe he heard about me. He rolls down the window, and he says, I thought you was an alien. And I'm like, he's got a gun. I'm like, no. I'm Bill Bucklew, and I'm walking across the country for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And my neighbor, Kevin, was with me. And he's like, gets on the dispatch, and he goes, he's walking with Michael J. Fox. I'm like, he was so worked up. I'm like, no. I'm walking for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. This is Kevin. He calmed down, but the safest jacket in the world almost got me killed, and it was really crazy. So be careful out there. The biggest thing that I took away from this adventure, and here I am kind of walking into San Diego at the end, the last mile. There was over 50 people walking with me, individuals in wheelchairs and all manners of vibrancy, which was just incredible. And some characters too. So this guy you can see on the right side of the screen here was a veteran and had family members who had Parkinson's. And let me just give you a feel for this. It's this stuff that's just so much fun.
He's not there yet.
You're that old? You haven't done anything.
I'm 90 years old. My sister had Parkinson's.
He's 90 and his sister had Parkinson's.
And all that, you had trouble turning around. I'm worried about myself. I'm 90, but I can still do
Yeah. He was inspired to come down and show us his vibrancy and his ability to exercise. And this happened all throughout the walk. I just met people across America that were just really excited, inspiring, and just fun to meet. But also more importantly, we really got a lot of traction to raise awareness. I did over 50 media television interviews and 2 stints on the Today Show, and just reached millions and millions of people to raise awareness, which was incredible. online communities cropped up. And really what happened was I set out to hopefully inspire some people to exercise. And that did happen. But what happened in return, which was just, I never expected or even thought of really, is that these individuals became my inspiration. So I would wake up and I'd be in total pain, and I'd have 13 notes from people who had already walked. You know, I'm up at 5:30. People had already walked or ran a mile or 2 miles or something like that. And it was so inspiring that there was never a doubt in my mind that I was going to get up and go exercise. And it was just incredible. And I had no problem finding people, to the point of this Parkinson's being unfortunately a growth industry, no problem finding people with connections to Parkinson's. Every day we ran into people and heard their stories. And, you know, it was just so amazingly touching to connect with these individuals across the US and see how they're living and dealing with the disease. So, you know, I did make it to San Diego, but I did not break the world record set by Frank Giannino in 1980. But I did finish in 67 days, averaging 40 miles a day, marathon and a half every day without taking a break. I never took a day off. And it turns out I apparently have the fastest walk across the US by quite a bit, which is just a little added feather in the cap there. But you know, so it was a failure in the sense that I didn't achieve this kind of component of world record status that I wanted, which was to beat the fastest run across the US. But it was a huge success from an awareness standpoint, and we raised well over $100,000 for research, which was just huge. So turning failure into success, and then the propagation, the waves of propagation of this success continue. I had the great honor of being asked to speak at TEDx Chicago, which kind of allowed me to further gain awareness in different circles, which was really a phenomenal experience. And then, you know, I just want to point out that I started a charity organization called UnCorked Adventures in 2017 before the walk. And we have a great team of people. You can see them here: Steve Surgisketter, Heidi, my wife, myself, Steve Zarch, Christy McCullough. And, you know, I want to mention that Mark Campolito, we also had Steele Bokoff and Randy Myers, who were helping along with the initial walk across the US. These guys have been phenomenal, and we've done some good work since then. Hosted a 5K for the first time at the end of 2019 on the campus of Northwestern. Great success and a beautiful event, raised a lot of money and a lot more awareness. We weren't able to host it in 2020 because of COVID. So we pivoted, but we pivoted in a really positive way. In April, we hosted an event called 5 Live, where we had people exercising simultaneously together online. We had over 7,000 people participating in that on April 11th. And this came together in about a month from the idea to inception. It was incredible. And we had other members of the community. Jimmy Choi joined, Peter Leach from Lake Forest, who's a fellow Parkinsonian, Eric Johnson, who I'm actually working with, who runs Movement Revolution here in Chicago, which is a company that helps personalize wellness routines for individuals with neurological issues. You know, we all came together and did this, and it was just phenomenal. We had people in every state participating. We had 40 countries, and you know, it was amazing. We had 2 people in Uganda who had Parkinson's exercising with us, so just incredible. And then in November, we hosted a online wine tasting with 3 of the top sommeliers in the world. This was planned and executed in 11 weeks. And we had over 3,000 participants, raise $60,000 for charitable purposes for the Parkinson's Foundation and Team Fox, and just had a great event. And again, furthering awareness. So kudos to the team at UnCorked that really helped drive all this. And you know, it's just been really amazing. I've also had the great honor to spend some time with our congressmen and women in Washington, D.C., and talking to them about increasing funding in the NIH budgets and to some extent in the DoD allocation components to further neurological research. And I'm continuing to press on these discussions with our local politicians and everything else. So continuing the fight there. And then I started a pilot study to look at the impact of these wellness routines, which are personalized and customized. As the doctors talked about earlier, we all know everybody is different and their experience with the disease is different. So rather than having a cookie cutter approach to helping people live better with the disease, we're focused on a couple different dimensions, exercise being one, nutrition, and some social psychology components, giving people custom plans. And we're re-kicking this off in about a month and a half, and the scientists at Northwestern are going to independently verify the effects of this program on individuals, and we'll start recruiting for that soon. So that's really exciting. And then I've just had the honor to speak and share my message around the world. And it's one of the most rewarding things that I've done. Like today, I can share my story, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to it. I really hope it's helpful. This is becoming more and more of a passion of mine, and I really enjoy it and appreciate the engagement that I've gotten from the individuals that I've been able to share it with. And I'd be really remiss not to talk about my family. And as you can imagine, with all this crazy stuff that I'm doing, the support that I have from my family has been incredible. My wife Heidi and son Evan and daughter Madeline have always been 100% supportive of everything that I've pursued in this avenue here. And I just could not have done it without them. So, okay, so I'm going to transition here to this last little piece, which I really hope this is interesting for everybody. I've learned a lot, and I'm shocked by what I've been able to achieve. And I hope this inspires some energy in individuals who are having a tough go. And I want to say on the onset, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just sharing my experience. If you're going to go down a path of some sort of a change in your exercise routines, make sure you address that with the proper individuals, whether that be your primary care physician or your neurologist or movement disorder specialist. It's important. And what I'm going to say is going to probably seem fairly extreme. So I want to point that out. I started off in January of 2020 having a really rough go. I've been training very hard for the Hong Kong 100, which is a 100-kilometer race in the mountains of Hong Kong. And I woke up with what I thought was food poisoning. And my thought was the gestation period of that, because this could be like maybe 13 hours and it's a 30-hour race. So I will just suck it up and deal with it. And I'll hopefully go through the cycle and be feeling better. But it turns out I had the stomach flu, and that lasts a little bit longer. So about 15, 16 hours into the race, I had not eaten anything because I was throwing up continually. I had severely dehydrated and had not taken my medication either. So out of abundance of concern of safety, I had to discontinue that. So this is before we really knew what was happening with COVID. So it started off pretty tough for me. And then right before things shut down on March 1st, I ran the Napa Valley Marathon. And for those of you that know me know I love wine. It's a big passion of mine. And they featured an article of me on the front page of the Napa Valley Register. So, I mean, what a huge thing for me, right? But I had such a tough race. You see this photo down here. I had such severe dystonia that my foot actually bore a hole in my shoe about halfway through the race. And I was running with like curled right foot. And those of you that have dystonia know this is not this is not fun. So the only relief was we took a little divergence at this point, during the race, and did a 20-minute wine tasting, which helped relieve the symptoms temporarily. But just continuing to fight through that. And then I mentioned Movement Revolution, the company I've been working with. Their headquarters is in the Berto Center. And for those of you who know the Berto Center know that it's the Bulls training facility. It was the Bulls training facility for decades. And, you know, there's been some incredible individuals who played basketball there. You might know this guy, Michael Jordan, you know, during the prime era, this is where he was training. Scottie Pippen, and then this guy, Bill Bucklew. Yeah, I March 29th, I pulled a Jordan-like move with a Pippen-like intensity and heard a loud pop in my knee, felt it, and collapsed immediately. And learned pretty quickly that I had done some pretty serious damage. I had a full rupture of my quadricep off of my left knee. And that's a major injury, 7-month minimum recovery. So 2020, it was just like unbelievable. But I got into surgery very quickly, and I want to just say I'm just so thankful for the healthcare providers that got me through this at a time that was very difficult. You can see the nurse here on the right helping me to stand up to see if I could make it to the car after the surgery. But this presented a lot of challenges for me. You know, but interestingly though, I had some free time because my knee was going to be locked straight and I wasn't supposed to be weight bearing on it. So I did a lot of research, and I started researching exercise. And I knew already the impact that exercise could have based on some things I'd read before, but I was blown away at the number of studies that have medical studies, credible journal studies that are cited that talk about the effects of different exercise programs. To the doctor's point earlier, there is no one exercise that you need to do. It's the exercise that you can do and that you're going to want to keep doing. I want to point that out. But it is overwhelming to look at this stuff. But the benefits are huge. Benefits have been seen in studies to reduce the risk of developing Parkinson's disease, improving motor and non-motor symptoms. From a medication interaction standpoint, can improve medication efficacy, can reduce side effects, improve quality of life. It's unbelievable. The other thing that's really emerging right now that is a little bit under the radar, I think, still is the impact of nutrition. This article just came out last week that showed the MIND diet and the Mediterranean diet really impacting the progression and onset of the disease in women and men, respectively, between those two diets. But there's hundreds of studies out there that show the impact of nutrition on neurodegenerative diseases. It's mind-numbing, and it's really hard to sort through all this and make sense of it. So I started mind mapping this stuff out and taking it into lifestyle modalities. So each study, almost like a medical research study where they cite another study, I'm citing a lifestyle modality for each study that's credible and breaking it down and clustering it. And I found some interesting clusters, some that we know, exercise and nutrition. Attitudinal things like a positive attitude. There are studies that show that has a significant impact. Sleep, and then change. These are all intrinsic things we can control. And what I mean by change is trying something new, doing something different. Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN just wrote a book, and he was talking about this, and the neuroscientists say, to help you understand what I'm talking about, it's like eating dinner with your left hand if you're right-handed. You know, forcing your brain to control your body in ways it's not used to can help this brain-derived neurotrophic factor with a BDNF, it's called, which, you know, basically helps with neuron survival and growth, which is really interesting. It means you don't have to live with the brain you have today, potentially. And then the external factor of community being really important. So, you know, I really couldn't even walk, but I decided I was going to continue to exercise and challenge myself to find ways to exercise. So here I am on an 8-mile walk on my crutches, which as I got better, I moved to trekking poles. I did a lot of upper body cardio, so I would do the ropes and just burn those in. I tried and I'm trying to learn to play the guitar. As Heidi will tell you, I'm relegated to the basement based on my playing acumen, which I think is correct, but I'm hoping to be out on stage soon with that, so stay tuned. And then I started doing speed bag because I couldn't work my legs very much. And it's amazing what I was able to do in just a 5 or 6 week period of time. I'll give you a flavor. I've been staring at this thing for several months wanting to try it. So I'm going to challenge myself to stay active in something new. You'll know where to find it. Not bad. So I'm doing this with ruptured quad. And I'm still working on improving today, and it's just amazing what you can do if you really try and focus in on something. Just shocked. I was doing all the world major marathons in a row, and I did Boston, Berlin, Chicago, New York, all in a row in 2019. But then, of course, Tokyo and London, which were scheduled, were both postponed now into October of this year. And then I was training to do the Marathon des Sables, which is a 250-kilometer race in the Sahara Desert, the hottest desert in the world. And last week that was postponed from this April to October, the same time as those marathons. So I've really got to sort some things out. And I just want to finish with what I think is a really incredible thing is anyone with Parkinson's, it should be familiar with the MDS-UPDRS. And what that is, it's the test you do when you go to your neurologist. You know, you touch your nose, you do your hands, you move your feet, and they measure kind of the manifestation of your symptomatic being on fine motor and gross motor skills and things of that nature, and you can score it. So I started taking this test 2 or 3 times a week in May, and I've been doing that every week, and I'm still doing it. And when I started ramping up my exercise after my accident in the Berto Center, it's unbelievable what has happened to my UPDRS score. But more importantly, it's unbelievable what's happened to my ability to interact and my motor coordination. I've seen a 40% reduction in the UPDRS. And, you know, I just started exercising in a significant way again. And this is shocking. I actually have backed off my medication with consultation with my clinician. I'm taking less carbidopa levodopa now than I was 5 years ago. So, and, you know, this is a combination, I believe, of exercise and nutrition. And then one more very hopeful thing, and the doctors touched on this, and it's absolutely true. There are 47 Parkinson's disease-modifying pharmacology agents in the pipeline right now. Disease-modifying, which means it could affect the progression or the symptomatic control and evolution of the disease in people. 10 years ago, there was almost none. And it's growing. In the last 18 months, the pipeline has grown like 15%. So there's so much hope out there for the, like the doctor said, the next 5 or 10 years, that it's just incredible. So there's a lot of reasons to really feel positive about the future of living with Parkinson's disease. So some final thoughts, and I'm going to wrap up. And again, I'm not a doctor. These are things that have helped me. Exercise with appropriate intensity, anti-inflammatory and balanced nutrition, therefore sustainable. I hate the word diet. I don't like it. It's not sustainable. I just changed my eating to a way that I can eat every day. And if I have a hamburger with bacon and cheese, I don't go off the deep end and say I broke my diet. It's just an indulgence and I keep going. It's fine. Having a positive attitude, challenging the status quo, problem solving, and persistence are important. Staying socially active, which granted has been very difficult in these times, but that's important. And then challenging myself to learn new things. All these have really helped me. The one thing I need to do that I'm still working on is getting more sleep. So that's a work in progress, and I'm going to continue to work on it. I only sleep about 4.5 hours a night, which has been tough. So my last words to everybody is my words of encouragement, challenge the times, don't let the times challenge you. Challenge your support network, including your clinicians, to find the right balance of things that are going to help you live as best as possible. And don't relegate yourself. If you've got a problem, seek out an answer to it and keep driving for it. And most importantly, challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to find your best path through this And my expectation is if you can push on any of those vectors I talked about before, exercise, nutrition, sleep, those types of things, any of them, just improve them a little bit, it's going to make a big impact on your life. We're all capable of more than we realize. I've learned that about myself through this journey that I've been on. And I'm hopeful that you find the same thing. I'm cheering for you. And I think if you can do that, the sky's the limit. So I just want to thank you for listening today and appreciate everybody.
Thanks so much, Bill. Wow, everybody give it up for Bill. Come on. Woo woo. I see give your woohoos, your ones, twos, your hellos, where we love you. Throw them up in the chat right now. Bill, that was absolutely spectacular.
Oh, thanks, Robert. Thank you.
I really, just from my heart, want to say thank you for being here. I had the benefit of getting to know you, and you were kind enough to let Dad and I stay in your place when we went to the Cubs game together.
That was awesome. I love that. That was incredible. Yeah.
And it's part of what we hope to build further. I think just getting the word out, we're on the same mission in so many ways, and without giving away too much, who knows? Maybe we'll meet everybody at the Field of Dreams in the summer.
I love it. I love it. The family's dreaming about that as we speak, so it's great.
Bill, can you hang out for a little Q&A?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. Let's get panelists to come on up and